Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, October 26th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Wisconsin game is in 2 days. The game against Michigan in 30 days. This episode of Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning presented to you by Jeff Ruby's, the award-winning upscale steakhouse in downtown Columbus, proudly offering nationally acclaimed USDA prime steak, seafood, and sushi, impeccable service, live entertainment, and an attention to detail that is simply unmatched. Go to jeffruby.com to get a look at the menu and make a reservation today. And Jeff Ruby is also the sponsor of our Huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com, so thank you to Jeff Ruby for that. And they are sponsoring all the episodes where Ross Fulton appears on the morning show. So guess what? If you hear me talking about Jeff Ruby, you are probably going to hear me talking to Ross Fulton. We're going to be doing that again today. He's one of our X's and O's gurus at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Ross, there was more good news than bad news for Ohio State coming out of that Penn State game. We're going to talk about the offense today. We'll get to the defense tomorrow. That's pretty much all good news on that side of the ball. But on the offensive side of the ball, the running game was, I will be polite and say, a little uneven. Let's start with the good news, though. They got off to a real good start in this game. The first drive or two, I thought, oh boy, this is the best I've seen Mayan Williams look all year. And then it sort of tailed off a little bit later on. But how did they get off to a fast start on the ground in this game?
Yeah, it probably was the best that Mayan Williams still has looked all year, all things considered, even with the final stats. And so there's sort of some good, some bad, as you said. And so one thing that was both a positive and also somewhat frustrating is I think they had a nice plan to run the football early. This is an example of it, and they went trips to the field through wide receivers to the wide field. It's called a trip snub because you have the tight end to the boundary and he's in line, so he's not in the backfield. He's up on the line of scrimmage. And they run then mid-zone to the field. So didn't see a lot of stretch this game. In fact, I think they only ran it one time maybe to the field the entire game. Instead of a lot of mid-zone. And so they kind of were attacking this A-gap bubble that Penn State was presenting. You can really see in the replay, and doing a nice job getting to the second level from this. Also saw some GH counter early. Unfortunately, the sort of, I guess, a frustrating thing is that they didn't run this at all in the second half. Like, they kept running mid-zone, but they did not run it from this formation. Penn State also changed up somewhat of what their defensive tackles were doing that made some of these combos a little more difficult. They kept getting more and more aggressive in the box. Penn State played a ton of cover one, a lot more than I expected, a lot more than they normally play. And that did help them get an extra defender down, off the edge, as Ryan Day talked about on Tuesday. So scheme wise, again, it was a little frustrating this sort of way. They stopped running counter largely as well. I think some of that has to do with Mayan Williams. He tried to bounce one early in the game, and there's a picture of, I think Justin Whitlock tagged it on X, of how frustrated he was that Mayan Day tried to bounce that play because it was blocked to cut up inside, and that's Mayan's tendency to bounce things, unfortunately, and so that showed up some. But I just think they are, been a lot of focus on the offensive line. But I just think the running back carousel is really hurting at this point. They're not, they missed a lot of holes. You have guys play one game, then they don't play again for several days. It's hard to know what kind of reps anyone is getting. I think that going forward, for whoever's fault it is, TreVeyon Henderson continues to be injured. And it sort of makes it difficult because, if your plan is to play TreVeyon Henderson, and then you sort of have a bigger guy like Williams and Chip Trayanum as a changeup, that makes a lot of sense. But without that explosive element, then if TreVeyon Henderson continues to not be available, I think you have to play Dallin Hayden. And personally, what I heard Ryan Day say during his Tuesday press conference, I don't know if you agree with me, was yeah, we're going to play Dallin Hayden going forward. If things continue how it was, he pretty much shot down, we're worried about the red shirt idea at this point.
Yeah, it felt like he was saying that, but sometimes that's sort of, we're going to kind of evaluate it, take a look this week. Sometimes that ends up with the thing he's talking about happening, and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm still a little wait and see on whether you see Dallin Hayden or not. I'm with you, though. I think especially if you don't have Travion Henderson. It feels like Dallin Hayden gives you something that Mayan Williams and Chip Trayanum, Mayan Williams and Chip Trayanum have stuff they're good at. It feels like Dallin Hayden gives you something else that has sort of been missing without Travion Henderson in the last couple weeks. Let's talk about, this is another area where they struggled. Let's talk about the goal line, Ross. Yes, we have to. This is another that we're going to be talking about a play here where they're down in the goal line. It feels like an opportunity to punch the ball in, and they continue to struggle in certain short yardage and goal line situations.
Yeah, and so, again, there's probably some, not to make excuses, but like they had a package, obviously, with Devin Brown. Like that was their goal line and short yardage plan largely. And that the play before this fell apart. And, to further provide context, they did convert several third and shorts in this game. Like they got 4-man surfaces to each side. They wedge blocked. Like, again, Mayan Williams did come in very handy on those plays. Like he carried a guy way across the line. And because they're wedging, it was wide enough formation that they didn't have that pressure off the edge. They scored the first touchdown was obviously a similar heavy eye formation look where they ran like a lead outside zone and Mayan Williams got that last half a yard. This one again, though, is like, Ryan Day, has a certain cliches. He loves the scheme coaching personnel. And again, like we have all three hit on this play. So there's a couple things about this that like I find frustrating. And like we can start with the execution. Like as Ryan Day basically acknowledged on Tuesday, like this one's Cade Stover's fault, right? Like he gets beat inside. They're basically running an ISO, but with wedge blocking. So again, everyone's stepping to their inside and you're trying to cut off inside penetration. Like he's slow out of his stance. His split's too wide. Like Day kind of referred to that. Like I think there's ways that they could help him get, he needs to be tighter. He's again, like if you freeze it like a half a second after the ball snap, like he's still in his stance and everyone's already moving. I also just think this is a difficult block to make. Like I don't know why they're running this short yardage play as both an isolation play and a wedge play. Like a typical ISO play, like if you're, as the name suggests, like the fullback's leading up on the inside linebacker. And so like to the inside of that, you block down, but outside of that, usually like the tight end and the tackle fan block. So like if Luka Montgomery there is fan blocking the guy outside who's trying to crash in, and Stover's blocking the next guy out crash in, then you have the hole there and Caden Curry can lead up. So again, like I can quibble with that. I also just think that like they're too predictable that like they run on third down in these situations and they pass on fourth down. Like it's something like it's just like rock, paper, scissors. Like it's something like you got to change it up just to change it up, right? Like I thought for sure they'd come out after the Devin Brown injury and like show this heavy formation and throw a pass. But they didn't. And like, again, I don't necessarily have a problem either with the fourth down call. It just wasn't executed well. So, I just think that though, it just can't be like third down heavy package. We're going to run it. And then if we don't make it, we'll pass. There has to be some more variety, but obviously like Devin Brown's out. So it's kind of back to the drawing board on what they're going to do in these goal line situations. I can't blame them too much for not sneaking here. Like your backup quarterback just got carted off the field. So like, are you going to throw your starter into the muck, when it's hard to see at the goal line, whether that ball crosses the plane anyways. But I still think like, hey, you could just throw it to Marvin Harrison's back shoulder occasionally as well as also could be a viable option that should be thrown in the mix.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up because I actually asked Ryan Day about that at the Tuesday press conference. We'll tell you what, let's just throw that in here right now. Here was Ryan Day's thoughts when I asked him, you've taken Marvin Harrison off the field in some of those goal line situations and, short yardage situations. With him, just throw him out to the field side. Like, I don't want to oversimplify things, but throw him out to the field side with as much attention as he gets. Either you have him one-on-one or you have him draw 1.5, 2 people away, and then you get a numbers advantage in the box. So here was Ryan Day's answer on that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. When you get down there on the 1 or 2 yard line, we got to get in. it's unacceptable not to get in. So we have long discussions on what gives us the best chance to do that, and we'll keep doing that. And if having Marv out there gives us the best opportunity, then we'll do that as well. But I feel like we got to be able to make a yard or two when we get down in there. And I know there's a lot of people in the box. I get it, but but we'll keep looking at it and making sure that we're doing what's right and putting our guys in the right situation.
All right, so that was Ryan Day's answer on that. He was also asked about another thing that they do with Marvin Harrison, which is sort of moving him around. They've been playing him more in the slot recently, part of that possibly because of the absence of Emeka Egbuka for the last game and a half, whatever that has been. But this next play you are going to be talking about here, Ross, is an example of Marvin Harrison in the slot. Why is this such an effective thing for this Ohio State offense?
Yeah, so I guess a couple of plays where I've sort of had some critiques of, one, what they stuck with or didn't stick with in the run game, as well as the short yardage. But I thought Ryan Day and his staff had an excellent game plan for getting Marvin Harrison open and not allowing Penn State to bracket him. Or, Penn State, as I mentioned, was playing a ton of cover one. So just basically forcing Penn State in cover one to not be able to be up on him and have to play with off coverage. And so, again, like going that game, no Emeka Egbuka, no TreVeyon Henderson, like you're missing two of your three explosive playmakers. So you do have to kind of, put things together with Bailey and Wire. So this is the first play shows one thing they did a lot of, which is like they'd use fast motion, particularly like, either from the tight end or from Julian Fleming. And so it starts out looking like Marvin Harrison is the outside receiver, but when the ball snapped, he suddenly becomes a slot receiver. And again, that forces Penn State to communicate. Either they're going to trade off, and so now the cornerback bumps out, or if he stays with them, you have people in uncomfortable positions. And by using that sort of like kind of ending up in a stacked alignment, you again you can't have press coverage. You have to be off of him. And so Ohio State got a ton of opportunities, particularly like here, this is a shallow cross. So they kept taking advantage of Penn State in man coverage. If Harrison was running a shallow cross, they would try to pass it off. So instead of the corner following him, he would basically zone off and have the inside linebackers try to cut the crosser. The problem is like it's Marvin Harrison, and so he just, made all those guys look kind of silly trying to do that. And so he gets a big gain here, and we'll talk about another one. Or like they get a lot of easy slant completions because again, like Penn State could not, either because of a fear of getting beat deep by him, or because of the way that Ohio State was using stacks and bunches and releases to give soft man. And so these are things that, like, when we go back to the run game as well, like, he had 11 catches. He could have probably had 25. Like between like, there's, again, Kyle McCord's inconsistency at the beginning, like, that's a whole nother subject. Like for whatever reason, and not to digress here, but like McCord's footwork is it's not as sharp at the beginning of games. And it's like something they have to figure out. I don't know if it's like nerves or like getting into the flow or what. Like, I think Justin Whitlock had a couple good posts about it on X, showing some of the pictures of that. And like, he keeps snapping out of it. Like in the second half, I think he was like 12 or 14 or for whatever. And, some of the same concepts like he was completing that he wasn't early. So, but anyway, so between the misses to Harrison, and then like, you could just keep doing this. Like they ran, in the second half, like a double slant RPO, like again, like with the off coverage, the slants are just, were sometimes easy pickings. And so, again, they did a nice job. Like they had the jailbreak screen that they threw to Harrison, like faking GT counter. They did a nice job off of like hard play action with the one wheel route, showing duo with the fast motion. So like they did build things into the run game and really work to get him open, including by putting him in the slot.
All right. And then here's this last one is another one where there's some commonality to the last one. They're again using formation, this time tight bunch, and a concept we've talked about a bunch, and that is mesh. And once again, using what Penn State does against Penn State to get Marvin Harrison open. This was the touchdown towards the end of the game.
Yeah, and again, so this is the other thing that they did. So they used the fast motion to put him in the slot, or they would put Harrison opposite the tight bunch. And what they kept doing throughout the game was like they would shift in and out of tight bunch. So again, like you're messing with Penn State's man coverage rules. And so, they have to lock in levels, like play it at different depths. And again, so you are preventing them from being up in your face and getting press. And so here they're running a mesh from a different look, right? So like mesh, a lot of times, like you have the running back in the wheel route. Well, here you have Carnell Tate as the outside bunch guy on the wheel, and then coming opposite. And again, Penn State tries to trade Harrison off to the linebackers, and that doesn't work. And so you can see like the focus and effort that went into ways to get Marvin Harrison the ball early and often, between like putting him in the slot, using the, screens. They had the one RPO also, like where he like came underneath across the formation that they blocked for him as like sort of a slide RPO. And so, yes, he is taking on a lot of like the both Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka rules. Some of these plays they use for Egbuka, but like, even before Egbuka went out, as we talked about against Maryland, like they were putting him more in the slot, and I would expect that to continue, and hopefully Egbuka's back, because they definitely need Egbuka back, because this is just, it's putting a lot on Harrison, and then trying to be very efficient, because they don't have the same explosiveness right now without Egbuka and TreVeyon Henderson.
Well, we will find out for sure if Egbuka and TreVeyon Henderson and Denzel Burke are all back this weekend. When we get up to Madison, we'll be headed up there on Friday. Tony, Kevin, and I covering the game. We'll have probably a little bit of fun and festivities from around Madison, one of the Big Ten's more fun college towns. We'll be up there this weekend covering that game. We'll have all sorts of usual post-game coverage for you. I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch more going on around college football as well. We'll be talking about all that stuff at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And thanks again to our sponsor, Jeff Ruby Steakhouse, sponsor of the Huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com, where we have all of our great insider content. Sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.